Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Hello. Hope everyone's doing well. Okay, well, we are 3 minutes past, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen. But I do want to quickly introduce Irina Rubenstein. She's one of my colleagues at the National Portrait Gallery. Beth Evans, also a colleague at the National Portrait Gallery. Cynthia Brown, she is from Smithsonian Gardens. And Maya Durham, she is an intern this summer with us from Smith College. So let me go ahead and share. Okay. All right. So welcome, everyone. We're really happy to have you here this evening and very excited to bring this particular event to you, In Dialogue, Smithsonian Objects and Social Justice. I think it's a great time of year to do this because it is time for people to plant, probably for later in the year, or at least get started for the fall. Let's see. Right. Okay. Okay, trying to advance this and it's not working. All right, sorry about that. Okay. My dear Smithsonian friends, can you help me out?
Jerry, you may want to try stop
Yep.
sharing.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
try that again.
Okay, let's try this again, but I'm going to look at it first. There we go. And actually, Beth, could you advance the slide?
I'm afraid I don't have access to that, Jerry.
Okay, wonderful. Hang on a second.
You could, yes, make
Yes.
Beth a co-host. Great.
Okay, yep, exactly. Would you be able to advance the slide, Cynthia? Or Maya or Irina? You should be able to. Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you, Maya. So today what we'd like to do is to bring to you some in dialogue community norms. This is some things that we do typically so that we can all have a great time. So basically, what we are asking is that we respect each other's opinions and consider your own privacy and that of others. Think before you hit the send button. Avoid inappropriate misstatements. and cyberbullying won't be tolerated. The program, as we mentioned in both the invitation and in the Eventbrite link, states that the program is being recorded. Next slide. So quickly, I would like to read something to you that will help us kick off this program. Although we are getting together today from different places, we gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. We also recognize that since this nation's founding, who is represented and how one is represented reflects the country's flaws as well as its strengths. The National Portrait Gallery strives to present a more complete narrative, one that acknowledges the history of slavery, racism, and inequity of the United States. So I will go ahead and quickly introduce myself. My name is Jerry Provost Lyons. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at the National Portrait Gallery, and I'm in charge of docents and interns. The mission of the Portrait Gallery is to tell the story of America by portraying the people who shaped the nation's history, development, and culture. Okay, Cynthia.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm delighted to join you this evening and share some information with our attendees, as well as hear back from them and their opinions for different things that go on with gardening. So I'm very excited to share with you this evening an image from our Archives of American Gardens. The Archives of American Gardens is a part of Smithsonian Gardens, and Smithsonian Gardens is a museum without walls. Our gardens, which are living exhibits, surround all the museum buildings on the Smithsonian campus, and we reflect the mission and the theme of the garden or the museum that we surround. So we're very excited to share with you some important information that we have in the archives, and very excited to let you know that it even exists. You can find it on our website, and the collection collects, preserves, and provides access to resources that document the history of gardens in America. The archives hold over 10,000 images and other materials from contemporary gardens, as well as gardens from back in the late 1800s. So we're continually following the trends, the political, social, financial changes that happen in the United States that are reflected in the gardens. So I invite you to visit our website and also visit the Archives of American Gardens. Thank you.
Okay. Cynthia, why don't we go ahead and get started with this first slide?
Sure. So this is a terrific slide that's in the archives from the early 1900s. And it is an image that may look familiar to many people nowadays. It is a garden that was created by a woman, and she did an amazing job of bringing this community to life. She created this. This is in Hell's Kitchen in New York City, and it was called Hell's Kitchen because that's an accurate depiction of what it was like to be in there. This was an area that was not necessarily the most attractive of areas, highly polluted, in buildings were deserted, and she was concerned for the citizens for this community. And she really wanted to make a difference. So she created a garden that was part of an urban park. And if you look at this image, you can see the pavilion in the background. And on the other side of that is actually a playground, play material, so the children could play, but then they could also learn how to garden. Many people think that school gardens and community gardens are a product of the 70s and the 80s. That's not true. The platforms, the garden platforms, have been used by very many conscientious groups and individuals to help alleviate real and perceived social problems. From the progressive era of the early 20th century to the urban community gardening movement of the 1970s and 80s, many schools and communities have used gardening as health aids, teaching tools, builders of self-esteem, and self-sufficiency. Also, city beautification and sources of individual income. Americans keep figuring out different ways that gardens can help both communities and schools, rightly or wrongly. So that's what I want to share with people. Look at this image. What do you see there? And let's move on to the questions that we formulated. And we'd like to share with you, see what you feel like. So, take a moment to think about some of the issues that you have in your community, whether it be school or your neighborhood. And how might a school or community garden remedy or tackle these problems? So think of that, and please post your answers in the chat. We'll read them. And then I have a couple ideas I wanted to share with you to see how they may change your ideas or help you develop your ideas. So we're looking at chat now and see what people are adding. Food deserts in local area. Yeah, that's a big one that we talk about quite a bit. Smithsonian Gardens has a food garden, a victory garden, but it's representative of the exhibits inside the museum. It's not meant to be a solution for food deserts, but it will give you an idea to the citizens in our communities in DC of what type of things grow very well in our area. That's important. You don't want to encourage a food garden without understanding what grows in the area, because you don't want people to fail when they are trying to help themselves. And community members just don't know each other. And that's true. Many community gardens are created so that they can talk to each other. It's a meeting place. It's a place where you feel safe, hopefully, and you can feel like you can have conversations with all the other people that visit the area. And that's an important component of community gardens. Well, I'm going to ask you a couple questions now, because I want to see how maybe some of my questions would impact how you feel. Gardens are terrific, and we work with so many people that say, yeah, I want a garden. I have a school. It'd be great to have a garden. The kids could go outside and get some fresh air. And that's what Frances did for her, the DeWitt Clinton Garden. She really wanted the students to get out to get some fresh air, to learn some skills, to be healthier. She thought that that was going to make a big difference. The fact that you have you can teach civic lessons in a garden is important. It was important to her. But there were so many mistakes that were made by early reformers. And I think of people that went in, not Frances, she did her homework. She went and she really listened to the community and heard what they needed. And that's why the playground there is not in the DeWitt Clinton Park, not just a garden. So let's not make the same mistakes as some of the early reformers. Let's not make assumptions and perceive problems or solutions for those problems without going into the schools or the communities and asking them, what do they think? What do they perceive as their problem? What do they think might help? Isn't it terrible to have somebody come in and force an idea on you? Let's listen. Let's hear what they have to say. A garden may be wonderful to help them out with self-sufficiency or a way to communicate with each other. It might not. And that's maybe not what they want. Maybe they want a CSA, a community service area, so you can grow vegetables and just distribute it. Listen to your community members before you take a step forward?
So there was one question that I completely forgot to mention. So we do have a question, an essential question that we're asking of all of you. If someone could make the slides go back a couple frames, that would be great.
I love this one question too.
That one's ahead. Nope, that's ahead. Yes, thank you. And here it is. One more back.
This is like me playing with the remote at night on the TV.
I know,
and I can
right?
never hit it.
So basically, we want to know your thoughts on this too. How do community gardens and school gardens promote social justice and food security? So that's pretty much the focus on our talk tonight. And I will give it back to Cindy. I just wanted to make sure that we had that question out there for you to ponder.
And I love some of the ponderings that I'm reading. The fact that we don't talk to each other anymore a lot of times. We don't talk to our neighbors. We don't talk to the people down the street. And perhaps a garden would be an area that would encourage conversations. And one of my favorite gardens is down in South Carolina. And it was run by a minister. Now, whether you're religious or believe in that or not, the point of it was he was able to pull weeds with the community members, with people that needed help but didn't know how to open up and talk. So he didn't require anything of anyone else. He just pulled the weeds and he listened to whoever was next to him, whatever the conversation that they wanted to have. And eventually the other people would start to pull weeds along with them. And somehow when you're pulling weeds, all of the other things leave your mind and you're able to discuss really what you want to discuss, not what you feel like you have to discuss, but what you want to discuss. And I see community gardens or any kind of garden. You can come to my garden and pull weeds. I'll talk to you. But I think that's a really good point to make. Gardens sometimes can really encourage communication. So I want you to think of, after listening to that, let's look at that last question again. Let's look at what kind of actions, after you heard me say, don't come in and tell somebody what to do. What could you do? What's the first step that you would do that you could make a difference with social injustice in your community or your neighborhood? You're listening. How about you, Jerry? Have you thought about putting a garden in your community? Have you thought about what it would be like to share a space with your neighbors?
Sure. I mean, it's something that I think we think about. Many of our neighbors, because we live backed up to some land that belongs to the county, we have a lot of wildlife. So we would really have to plan well. And the folks that do have gardens, produce gardens in their yards, they do have to fence them off and use raised beds, and that all makes sense. But I think it would really be a great thing to kind of put out there to my neighbors, for the future. Mm-hmm. I think we'd have some takers.
Yeah, you might. And you might learn about each other's cultures. You might learn new recipes. That's why I got into gardening, because I love to cook and I love to try new things. And I love to ask my neighbor, oh, your house smelled really good, or the aromas coming out of your house smelled really good. What were you cooking? Oh, I never heard of that before. What's that vegetable? What tradition is that from? And it's a way to open up a conversation as well as learn, share, be proud of what your skills are and what you know. And it's a great way to just stop and listen. People love to tell you about their dogs. They love to tell you about what food they're eating too. That's thing. So here's another one. I live in a working class area and poverty is a problem. I think growing free food would be helpful. I think growing food would be helpful. one thing I think people don't understand is how expensive it is to grow food in your own garden. And so that's something you want to think through first. My husband always laughs that I grow $100 tomatoes because by the time I bring in the soil, I add compost, fertilizer, and buy the seeds, the 2 tomatoes I get off my tomato plant are $100 a piece when you average it out. But I think you can figure out a way to do it. You can figure out a way to get help. Who are those stakeholders? And this is a great image. This is something, a garden that was created at Anacostia Community Gardens. This was a vegetable garden that was created by an educator there at Anacostia Community Garden named Zora Martin. And Zora Martin saw the need to help the students in the neighborhood around the museum with science. They came to her, they were talking about how, they weren't succeeding in science and how could they learn more about science. So she knew gardens could help out with science. They help out with poetry, with photography and everything. And she also saw a need for the students to have healthier, more sustainable lives. So she put those two needs together after she talked to the community, and she came up with this community vegetable garden. And it was a wonderful program. They still have a community vegetable garden at Anacostia. So when things go back to normal a little bit more, check into it. But their online presence is terrific as well. But Zora Martin saw this need. It was a basic need for her students, for her community members. And she took it and she ran with it. She got stakeholders. There's nothing worse than planting a garden at a school and then nobody's there in the summertime to water it. And you didn't even ask the janitor where the key for the spigot was. Ask your community members. Yet gardens also attract and support pollinators and other wildlife, and that's something we're very strong on at Smithsonian Gardens. We have a pollinator garden, we have a campus-wide habitat exhibit, and that's something that's so important to teach to anyone, not just students. How do you help support those creepy crawler members of your community and take joy in it? Jerry, what do you think? How would you do? Well, here's a rooftop garden. And it does. It helps cool the building. That's something that they have discovered in many other countries and cities. Chicago is a great city that uses some rooftop gardens to be able to cool it. And it's making a difference to figure out how you can use a space, a garden in particular, that you never even thought of before. Something that they've done in Germany is use gardens to absorb, that's probably not the right word, but absorb the rainwater so it doesn't go down into the runoff and increase the sewer water that is so expensive to treat and take care of in urban areas. Something to think of. What can you provide to your community that would solve a problem? So we saw this. We really wanted to make a difference with gardens in the Washington, D.C. area, and actually nationally too. There are many sites that tell you how to put a garden together, how to plant, how to buy seeds, how to rototill your soil, whatever you want to do. But we really wanted to make a difference in creating the tools to schools so the students could build their own garden. A way so the students could identify the important stakeholders that could help them, understand what was needed to be able to make a garden successful, what was needed by the community. Again, I can't stress that enough. So we looked at some of our DC friends, the community, for groups that had succeeded in this area. And one of the groups that we worked with was Common Good City Farm. There are others that are out there. There are great schools that are making a difference. But Common Good City Farm had, and they still do this, every year they hire students that want to come in to learn more about how you maintain a garden. What do you put in? How do you engage the community? So we went and we interviewed the students to find out, well, why would they even want to do this? I mean, it's hot out in the garden. I don't know if you've ever pulled weeds when it's 110 degrees outside, but it's hot. And I know I didn't want to do that when I was 17. So what would make them want to do it? So we had to find out. We wanted to know so that we could put that in our lesson plans. We could put that and encourage other students to be engaged, use it from their language. And then we wanted to see what they learned from their community. So if you go onto our website, and it'll be put, there it is, you can go to that web link and you can read about stories all about community gardens and school gardens all over the United States and see how they did it, including Common Good City Farm and the videos that the students make. Lots of good stuff coming up here. But I want you to show your link, Jerry, the thing that we have in common, not just gardens, but we also have an amazing person that is encouraging school gardens. And she's doing it in a way that I think will promote success. She's working with the communities. She's understanding, she's giving them the tools that they need, multiple tools. And I saw this in action in New Orleans. I went down and there was a school that was in terrible shape. Lots of crime, just sad stories all over. And the school saw a need to be able to participate in this program. And the person that Jerry's going to tell you about saw a way to be able to help them. And what a difference. The students worked in the garden, but they also told what they wanted to grow. You know, what would they eat? There's nothing worse than growing things that nobody wants to eat. So find out what they wanted to eat. Well, then how do you cook with it? How do you share and sit at a table and eat it together? How do you learn about cultures with the food that you're growing in the garden? And then how do you make it a business? And Jerry, who's this wonderful person?
Next slide, please. There we go. I'm going to ask a couple of questions first before we dive into who this person is. We're going to take a look at this portrait. We're going to do some close looking. I find it to be an interesting portrait just to ponder and look at. And the more that I look at it, the more questions I have, or the more things I come up with to talk about. So take a good look at this portrait. And what do you first notice about it? You know, what is the one thing that pulls you in? And please put your answers in the chat. That would be great. And if we could have some of those shared, that would be great.
Someone is noticing the tree. Someone is noticing how perfectly the sitter fits within the landscape. Someone notices who this person is. Good eye. More people are noticing the tree and how the landscape is proportionate to the sitter in the portrait.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the next question would be, what is the setting? It may seem obvious and maybe it doesn't. I don't know. And, knowing what the setting is or how you see it and putting that in the chat, I think that would be great if you could share what you feel the setting is, even if it seems obvious.
I love this word, Jerry. My favorite is bucolic. So to me, this is bucolic.
Yes. And when I think about where it is, scratch my head and I'm very puzzled. Anybody want to share? Could you share with me the answers that we're receiving about what the setting of the portrait is?
I love this one. It says that the garden is not perfect, but seems real. And that's so important too.
Yeah.
You know, a real garden, not one that has been taken care of by 1,000 professionals, but a real garden.
Right, right. This isn't an English flower garden. This is a garden that is working. So now that we've asked those few questions, what is the focal point? And how do we know that's it's the focal point? What are we looking at, really? If you put your answers in the chat, I'd appreciate that.
Someone is restating who this person is, that she's Alice Waters. And as Beth has pointed out, there's some really good eyes looking at this portrait, the buildings in the background and the handmade fence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, as a gardener, I see the brassicas down by her feet. So I'm wondering, are those broccoli or cauliflower or what they are? But
right.
I see those little baby plants that is being nurtured in that garden.
Exactly, exactly. And it's, you know, as you were saying earlier, it's not perfect. It's a working garden. It's something that people are using, you know, to nourish themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the focal point, honestly, and really would be Alice Waters herself. So thank you for grabbing onto that and knowing who she is. When you ask some people who don't cook or don't garden, then, you know, they probably don't know who it is. But she's a very, very special person. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So Alice Waters attended school in University of California. First, she started at San Diego. And in her junior year of college, she went to the University of Paris. She was studying French culture. And what she noticed, what I've heard that she's written about that she noticed, is that, wow, this is something amazing. We're going to go and get our groceries right before we cook them. We're going to ask questions of the people that are selling the produce and the different things to us. And I think that's what really got her thinking about food in a way that is sustainable and also in a way that, you know, you can use that. It's usable. We can do that. So when she received her degree from University of California in 1967, right around in that time was the free speech movement in Berkeley. So while, you know, there's no notation that she was an outspoken person, I think she had some of the same values as some of them. That would be, you know, the Vietnam War going on at the time. And it's possible that's where she, you know, discovers some of the things that she's going to do later in her life. So after she graduated, she did postgraduate work in a Montessori school and in England, London, England. And then she worked as a Montessori teacher from 1967 to 1971 in Berkeley. And here is really what took it home for me, why she's so invested and involved in the projects that she works with. So Montessori, I'm sure many know about it. It's a holistic approach and it aims to develop the whole child. And the fundamental approach is that the belief that a child's early years from birth to about 6 years old, that's when they have the greatest capacity to learn. And then it all kind of starts, melding in my head thinking, this is amazing. This is so great. She opens a restaurant, Chez Panisse, in Berkeley, California in 1971. She expanded that in 1980. She also created Cafe Fanny, which is named after her daughter. Published a cookbook, Chez Penny's Menu Cookbook, in 1982, and many others. So in 1996, she notices that we were talking about food deserts earlier. There's a school named Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School in Berkeley. It's off of the Shattuck Avenue area. And what the question was is, how can we get these kids some really healthy food? And, she sort of had the answer for that. And she had some people who could help her make that happen, as Cindy would probably agree. And it sort of took off from there, as you'd mentioned earlier, Cindy. Edible Schoolyard is what her program is called. Is all over. I mean, and what's interesting to me too, as we were talking about Anacostia Museum, they were doing it much before she was. True, but it's a great idea. Now, Alice Waters is also a proponent of slow food. Slow food is knowing where it's grown and farm to table, if you will. No processed food. And, if you think about it, processed food also makes the environment not so healthy and not so safe. And she's really a huge proponent of keeping the environment safe and teaching people how to eat, especially kids. So today, it was announced just not too long ago, February 2020. I know that's probably a strange time for this to come out, that the Alice Waters Institute for Edible Education at the University of California, Davis was announced. And that is huge. It's going to play an integral part of the role of the creation of the Aggie Square near UC Davis campus. Now, this campus will not only service people who live in and around the area, it is also going to provide, teaching children how to cook, teaching the parents how to cook, growing the vegetables, growing the produce. It will also have several other types of things that a neighborhood really needs. So like a makerspace and, businesses that are really, really conscious of what they are doing and, how they would like, others to hopefully kind of get on the train to, keep it much more healthy than we have been going at it.
And Jerry, I'm good friends with many of the people at UC Davis, and they started growing food a long time ago to be able to serve in their cafeteria for the college students. They've also engaged with the community. They have done everything that we've been talking about. They saw a need within the community, a way to invite the community in. They saw a need for the students to be connected to nature. And they saw a need to be able to produce leaders that will carry this message out from UC Davis and be engaged with whoever they work with in the future. I've worked with many of their interns, and we have a Learning by Leading program at Smithsonian Gardens, and they were very smart to bring Alice in because those stakeholders are what make a difference, the recognition and bringing people in that know how to bring the community in and bring those stakeholders to really help support. Alice didn't pay for all this all by herself. UC Davis doesn't pay for it all by themselves.
Yeah. They're still fundraising for it at this point.
Yes.
And
yes.
it intrigued me. I thought, okay, I'm going to look into this further because just what they're doing, the whole group of people and the businesses, it just kind of speaks to how I'd really like to live the rest of my life.
Me too.
Trying not to consume as much stuff and just having more pure food.
Kathleen Skorlowski, I always say her last name wrong, but she is the creator of that whole concept at UC Davis. And it's amazing what the students have helped her do and how they've made the campus just truly blossom. I mean,
Right,
that wasn't a pun.
right,
That was meant. It's truly
right,
blossoming, and it's
right,
wonderful to see one more step taken.
right. And it's just so interesting too that, those are just a few of the things that Alice Waters has done. I mean, we could list the awards that she's won, but I think it would take us a bit and we'd be here for quite a while. But the other thing is too, is that she started a foundation, in the early 80s so that she could help fund the Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley, so that kids don't have to have. I feel like this is part of vending machines in schools. That's when it started. That's when I recall hearing, "Don't do it." How can we get kids to eat more healthy? It goes back and forth and back and forth. But she really is interested in ensuring that people know what they're growing, like you were saying, Cindy, like what they're doing, and also, just feel good about what they're eating. Feel better, probably because they're not eating things that have a lot of impurities in it. To be honest. So, okay, let's go ahead and check out. Thank you. Thanks. So my next question is, or a couple of questions, I should say. I wanted to look at both of these images side by side, and I'm hoping you'll play along. I would love to know what you think about, what is similar about these two images. You put that info in the chat, and if one of my lovely colleagues can share that, that would be great. What is similar?
I'm reading all the comments, Jerry. It's just
Okay.
fabulous to hear or read the thoughts that some of the people have about gardens. It's very encouraging.
That's exciting.
That we share some similar ideas, but I'm learning a lot too to see what's important to them, which I think we need to listen as much as we need to promote.
Exactly. So we're noticing gardens, how they're important. We're learning about how they're important to us. Let's ask the other one thing I would say is that the image on your left is a photograph, and so is the portrait of Alice Waters. It's an archival print. Now that print was created as a commission. Dave Woody, the artist, took this portrait, and it's part of the Outwin Bootcheevers portrait competition. And this is from 2009. This was created in 2012, or at least unveiled in 2012. And Dave Woody is a photographer, and he uses natural light to his advantage. So that's, one of the other similarities I thought was pretty great, a landscape and a portrait in a landscape. So what do we think is different about these?
That's what I say, the biggest difference to me, and we talked about this earlier, the fact that you do not see Frances Griscom Parsons in the picture on the left.
Right.
To her, it was all outgoing. It was never about her. It was about the garden that was created and the community that she was helping. With Alice, she's used her famousness, that's not a word. She's used her, sorry, that's what happens when I know that Zooming makes words disappear from my head. But she's used her reputation as a food celebrity to really help promote this. Frances was not a celebrity. She wanted to be able to make sure that she was using what she had to her best ability. And so they both understood how to use it themselves or not use themselves to be able to help promote their gardens. And that's, even though they're doing it in a similar fashion, that they are
Mhm.
figuring out how to use their own resources, there's a big difference between the two.
Right, right. And I noticed too, as I keep looking at this portrait, um, and I've seen it quite a few times in the museum when it was on display, and at other times too, doing some research. I mean, I realized that she's not in gardening attire necessarily. I mean, you know, it is it's a very Mediterranean climate in California. Most of the time, I'm going to say that. Not always. Right now, they're having some tough times with the heat, and it is due to climate change, and that's, I think, one of the other things that she's very um, a proponent of is, let's save the climate, one person at a time, one meal at a time.
Mm-hmm. This is my favorite comment. There are no children in either of them. So here they're both gardens. Alice is promoting schoolyard gardens, and Frances was making this big, huge garden to be able to
Right.
teach them how to garden and provide food for them. But neither of them had children, and I think that's because it's so hard to be able to get permissions of children
That's
in
what I was going to say
pictures.
too.
But that's a practical viewpoint. But it is a good comment to see
Right. Yeah.
they're both promoting similar activities, but
Right.
you don't see the recipients of the food in either one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when this particular portrait was unveiled too, she was interviewed by Jose Andreas, famous chef in his own right. And he was talking to her about how they met. And they met at the Folklife Festival years before,
Mm-hmm.
years before it. And they have a really great conversation about it. And, pretty much she said, I would have liked to have the whole mall, right? But we really have to, when you're doing the Folklife Fest, to think about scale. But it seemed that she was very pleased with what ended up there at that particular thing.
Do you know we
And
grew the vegetables for that exhibit at the Folklife
I
Festival?
I was
So
hoping you would say that.
yeah, we did. We grew some of it was difficult because at the time of the year we had big,
Right,
full stalks of corn, and so we did some
right,
magic work behind the scenes in the greenhouses.
right,
But
right.
I think it just shows it's so important to get people to help you that
Yes,
can support you in many different ways. Alice is
right.
supporting this movement not just with her celebrity, but with her knowledge of being able to engage and pull in other people. People just flock around her.
Mhm.
I would have gone and just listened to every word because I want to learn more about how she's doing this.
Right,
And she has
right.
that draw, and Frances did too. She was
Yeah.
able, you can't tell from this picture, but if you look the other way, you're looking at the Hudson River Harbor. And so this was an area that would have been prime real estate once they fixed it up like this a bit more. But she was able to get it and convince the community and convince the politicians and convince the holders of money that that was the perfect place to put that garden. Uh,
Right,
so they both use those skills to be able to make their gardens happen.
right, right. Exactly. Can we get the next slide, please? So, our one of our last questions to you, I believe, is if you're inspired by these objects and what we were talking about, what could you do in your own community? So, I think it's nice to look inward first instead of kind of trying to do something really large scale. I think that with Alice Waters herself, she built herself up to the things that she does on a larger scale today.
Mm-hmm.
Very well known, very well respected. Don't use the word gourmet or gourmand in front of her because she thinks it's an elitist word. And it doesn't include people who, can't afford to feed their kids, whatever it is that these high-end shops are selling. She is selling real, unprocessed food.
Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to show with this is a project that we have. This is another digital archive that we're encouraging every person to tell us their story. Why do gardens mean so much to them? What are they doing? What are the stories that they have? What has made a difference in their lives with some green space that's around them? So you get stories where it was 4 generations of gardeners that are sharing seeds from Italy and from grandpa to father to son, and knowing why they're sharing those seeds and why it was important to their culture, all the way down to gardens that I wouldn't even consider a garden until we got the story. She was a park ranger that worked in a park out west, and she said the park, the national park, was her garden. She walked through, she enjoyed the natural beauty, she could identify the plants. It was her garden that she was walking through. And there are other stories that tell the importance of gardens as being a healing agent. We have stories in there where uh, after some of the very unfortunate shootings, the gardens would help the citizens talk to each other, help the community talk to each other. So I would say if you want to be inspired, read some of those stories. Find out what they're doing across America, uh, what gardens are doing to make a difference in their communities and to themselves. And I love this one comment. Children think about the persistent idea that children are going to wreck everything in a garden. The most fun I've ever had is giving a plot of land, a little plot of land, to children. And you hear that from many of our horticulturists that are parents. They just let the children go at this little plot. They go shopping for seeds together or gathering them from neighbors together, and they encourage the kids to do whatever. They have failures. I mean, not everything grows, but sometimes some things grow. And I know that's why my children will eat just about any vegetable I put in front of them, because they had their hand in growing almost everything. So encourage the students to do it. Don't worry about making mistakes. I think the garden and the healing component of nature really allows you to make mistakes and grow from them. So
And on the website for Smithsonian Gardens, I imagine you have some great events or some past things that people could look at
we do.
to be inspired.
We do. Oh, thank you. I feel like you gave us a pitch, but we do have a series of webinars. We're in summer break right now, but it's called Let's Talk Gardens. So you can see speakers from all our own horticulturists, as well as speakers from other public gardens and private gardens, share their experiences with you. And if you've ever wanted to turn your brown thumb green, watch some of the gardens or some of the videos that we post up. We do it live on Thursday afternoons when we start back up again, but all the past presentations are on our website, including stories about gardens of resiliency, because that's what we're talking about. How, and I saw a comment up further that who has access to gardens and who doesn't? And that's an important conversation to have when you're considering what to put in. And I had 2 speakers, Katrina Lashley from Anacostia Community Gardens, and Averly, who is a horticulturist that is learning more about Black gardeners from all over the nation and what contributions that they have made. And so they talked about that very thing. At a time during the pandemic when everybody's going, yeah, go out and garden. Garden's so wonderful for you. Well, some of the people that needed the help and the accessibility the most didn't have access to green spaces, whether it be physical or mental. They didn't. So we got to do a better job of that. And you can help us do that.
Great. So I'd like to say thank you for joining us this evening and for being patient at the beginning with my Zoom technology failures. But I really do appreciate everyone coming tonight. Alice, Cindy and I first worked together because the day after the paint or the portrait was unveiled, we had a farm to table family day, and it was amazing.
It
We
was.
had different folks from all over Smithsonian Gardens and some of the city gardens that you've talked about. All of those folks were there too. And it was just so spectacular. People were saying, how often do you do this? And I said, this is our first time. So,
we need to do it again once we can get back in to museums. I just remember the cookbook that we created.
right.
All the recipes that you had them discover as they discovered the portraits of gardeners throughout.
Right. And so what we did is all of us who worked on the project together, we put some recipes of our own together and let the kids bring them home, try it out. Hopefully they succeeded or they made something interesting.
And they became leaders that would teach other people about the importance of eating things that they created and shared.
Right, exactly.
Thank you, Jerry. And thank you for
Thank
everyone
you.
that has participated. We enjoy sharing things with you, and we enjoy that you're interested in both gardens and portraits, two of the most endearing components of my life, art and gardening. What more can you, a book, that's it. Who said that? A book and a garden and art is all you need in your life. So
Right,
that was
exactly.
a terrible.
No, I think it's pretty great, actually. And the video that I was talking about, you can find that through the National Portrait Gallery Smithsonian Institution's website. And it's dated from January 20th, 2012. It is a 51-minute video, but it's really, really nice to watch. And let me just say one more thing. The most interesting thing I learned about Alice Waters is that she has a very soft voice and manner, but the things she does and the way she excites people to, do better for themselves and do better for others, it speaks volumes and it's really loud, if you will.
Yes. I went online and I looked up, what is social justice? And you just said something that is so critical to it. Self-love and knowledge. It is crucial for people, students, to learn how to love themselves and how their knowledge can help others.
Right.
And that will help us be more equitable.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for coming this evening. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you to Irina and to Beth and to Maya for helping out with the technical struggles. I really appreciate you and hope that you are able to attend our In Dialogue next month. So look for that on the NPG website also. Look under events and you should be able to see it right there in August. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. Have a good evening. Thank you,
too.
Beth and Maya and Irene. It was
Yes.
wonderful. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Cindy. Bye.
Bye-bye.